Counsel here at ContractPodAi. I've been with the company for several months now. I've been a customer of the company for several years now. I was previously the general counsel at a global AI and automation company, and it is my pleasure and my deep honor to have been invited to join ContractPodAi and part of that was because I love the solution and I love what we can do. Joining me today is my colleague Tara Bennett. Tara, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, my name's Tara Bennett. I'm Director of Solutions Engineering for EMEA and Asia Pac, and really excited to show you some of what the system can do today. Thanks, Jerry.
Absolutely. Colin, I know that you're off video right now, but I know in the chat box we had a Q&A during the practice session. Is that still something that's possible to have in case people have questions so that we can track them?
Yeah, Jerry, so if the attendees want to ask questions throughout, we're going to let them ask questions in the chat, and then I will respond just to flag them. And at the end, we can use the QA feature if there's any more questions.
Okay, marvelous. So with that, let me jump through this. Now, I will be the first to tell you, and Tara has heard this numerous times from me in the past, I'm not a big fan of slideshows. So with that in mind, here's a title slide, and we're going to jump on to the next slide. As mentioned, I am the general counsel here at ContractPodAi. I'm also our chief evangelist, and part of my job is explaining why we need to adopt technology in legal departments, how our ContractPodAi cloud platform, our one legal platform, which I personally like to think of as a legal operating system, can help you in your organization, help you work better with sales, help you find information that you're missing, and quite a bit more as your daily driver. We have what we believe is a class-leading, incredible system, and it's something that I am deeply enjoy using. So one thing that we focused on, we have 3 solutions, and we're going to touch on them briefly. Then we're going to show you some demo portions of this. So the fact is most legal departments need to increase the structure and visibility of their documents. And this is just one portion of your solution as a GC or legal department leader or legal operations leader to make this happen. We have found out that studies show that 64% of the cases in US state court, and probably the vast majority of cases worldwide, are due to contract disputes. Either you didn't perform, I didn't perform. There are all these issues that can come up. And a lot of legal departments, what they're facing is, how do we tackle this? How do we address this? What is the solution for us? Is it to just keep throwing everything in old file cabinets? Or if you want to think about new file cabinets, keep putting everything in Share Drive or Google Drive or Box? Just a few years ago, right before the pandemic, there was a report that came out that only about 42% of companies were satisfied with their current contract management system. And that was before as contract management was coming to the forefront. There have been a lot of problems in adoption and doing this. And what we found is that one of the key things that our customers and anyone adopting CLM is just getting the standard terms and conditions laid out and supporting review and approval as a secondary step. But not so many folks that are not using our platform can demonstrate a return on investment from what they put in. Now, we're proud to say that we're able to show that return on investment. Am I still here? Because it just told me I'm disconnected. Excellent.
You're still there.
Tara,
we can hear you.
Excellent. So Tara, let's jump in and take a look at what ContractPodAi does. And for those of you who are in the audience today, I like to point out that I'm a fan of legal technology in general. Getting lawyers what I like to say about it is my job is partially bringing lawyers into, I used to say into the 20.
Have we lost Jerry?
Hey, Tara, it looks like we lost Jerry. Do you want to?
I wondered if it was me. I was just about
Yeah.
to share my screen.
Yeah. Why don't you run a demo and I'll try to reconnect Jerry.
Okay, not a problem. Can you see my screen clearly?
Yeah, I can see it very clearly.
Good. Okay. So while we're waiting for Jerry to come back, what we're going to do is we're going to spend most of our time today in the contract lifecycle management application. We do also have a number of additional applications, as well as the ability to build your own with our new One Legal Platform offering. So for the purposes of today, we're going to come into the contract management application, and we're going to focus on a couple of use cases. The initial one that we're going to focus on is a self-serve functionality. So if you think about it in terms of the allowing users within the business access to be able to self-serve contracts, but within thresholds that legal have set. So typically we see clients using this for sort of high volume, low risk contracts. And in the example today, we're going to go through and we're going to self-serve an NDA. And we're going to do this all within the application today. If we do have the ability with via integrations, one example would be our native Salesforce integration, to be able to one-click self-serve, where it leverages all of the data held within the opportunity. It's just a different means of being able to get to the same endpoint. We really wanted to be... Oh, hi, Jerry. You're back.
Hi, I'm back. Thank you.
Hi.
Sorry about that, Tara.
That's okay. We were just going to start with the first example of self-serve, and I was just sort of talking about the various other ways that we can do this. So we're going to show it in the platform today, but also in terms of generally how you could make legal requests or instigate them via, ERPs, Salesforce, for example, or even via Outlook and Gmail plugins.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tara. Let me know if you want me to take over or if you want to keep going.
You feel free to start talking, and I'll click through, and you can voice over. Does that work?
Yes. Well, hopefully I don't get disconnected again. I am terribly sorry about that. I thought I had solved all my internet problems coming right before this started, but apparently not. So because we talked about in the first slide the idea of repository and advanced search and reporting, and I do want Tara to show off some of our really cool features. Tara, let's go to the repository first.
Okay.
And looking at what we're talking about right now, this is kind of one of those basic things that you need in any CLM. You need to know where your documents are, and you need to know how they're stored. So we've built this as a filterable, sortable storage mechanism where you can see everything that your company or your organization is dealing with from one page. Now, yes, as you add more in, pages are added, but you can always filter, you can always drill down, you can always find out information from what's going on. So one of the ways we do this, and Tara, if you can jump into any of the records, let's look at ABC Inc., but NDA in the second line. So once Tara goes into this, what we're seeing is a view of the general tasks you can do with the contract. You can go to the snapshot page, and of course, this is all very customizable. So I'm afraid I'm getting more internet connection unstable notes. So if I do drop off, I do apologize. But we're looking at the record summary, and this gives you an idea of everything about the status of your contract. Where is it in your workflow? How is it? What stage is going on? What are some of the details? Who needs to approve it? Who's taken actions on it? Have the signatories signed it? If we scroll down, and I don't know if there are any tasks associated with this one, there are, great. So you can actually see tasks that are affiliated with this agreement. And this is all built around our advanced AI, our advanced workflow, and driven by our cognitive solution and our AI solution. We, of course, do version tracking. We do automatic OCR. We do all of that. Now, Tara, I don't think that this one's signed, but can you click on the important date tabs? So what you're looking at here is what the AI has determined is a 10-year document. This information was actually automatically pulled out. We'll go on in a little bit and talk a little bit more about seeing the AI work, as well as understanding where the next section, key data, comes from. So if, Tara, can you click on key data too? Thank you. So again, all of this has been pulled out by the AI. We've trained quite a few of what we call key legal obligations that the system automatically recognizes. And it's not just based on the text in the words. It's not just based on matching a phrase. It's actual an intelligent review of the context of the sentence. So if you are looking at that, you can say, is this, even if I name the entire agreement clause that Tara has up, Ishkabibble, and called the agreement puppy, it would still understand that that's an entire agreement clause. It's not just looking at the words, it's looking at the context. So going back to the other part of this, the other part of the repository is having advanced search features, what we call cognitive search, as well as our deep sites, as well as what we call our deep sites platform. So cognitive search is our search function. It is a powerful search for those of you who are used to searching in Westlaw or Lexis, and I'm probably showing my age here. If you are used to searching in Westlaw and Lexis, we use very similar structure. And we're not just looking for, you can search for an exact phrase. We're not just looking for exact phrases. We're also looking for contextual clues. So if you start typing in force majeure, like I'm sure we've all done during the course of the pandemic, the system will begin attempting to find words that are similar, or that even the OCR may have been spelled wrong or weren't captured correctly. And when we search for them, it's going to return those slight misspellings as well. Now, what we can do is we can do things like a proximity search, force within 10 words of the word majeure. We could search for the exact phrase. We could search for wildcards. We could do fuzzy search. All of that is possible. And we can drill down. If you know that you're looking for an agreement that contained force majeure that you signed in February 2020, you can break that down. You can do it in pre-signature documents. You can do it in post-signature documents. So all of that is available. And of course, you can search on practically any topic, any term that you create within the system. So and again, we are breezing through this, but of course, I am always happy to delve more into this, answer additional questions. The other half, and Tara's running a search now, the other half of search and reporting, of course, is reporting. So Tara, if we can get over to reporting, and we have a very robust and customizable report structure. So whether you go with one of our standard out-of-the-box reports, or you want to see a specific report that you've designed for your organization, that's possible. And of course, you can generate, and we can work with you to generate a custom report on practically anything. So as Tara scrolls through this, you will see these are all items that we can run reports on, and this is on a demo system. So if you said, I really need to run reports on how many documents were signed by our VP of product in India in the past 6 months, we can do that. As long as we have the information As long as you have the information, all of that is possible. So I'm going to pause. I don't see that there's any questions. I don't think there are any questions right now, Colin. Let me know if there are. But that is the first step, in my view, of solving the legal operations problem, getting your structure built out, showing that the documents are there, and being able to search and report on them. And for some companies, if you get there, you've actually solved your biggest problem. That was actually one of my biggest problems when I started out as a GC. I was the first GC at a company, and I came in. They had no legal department. Documents were everywhere. I was basically having the IT team crawl through SharePoint and people's computers to find information. What we did was we had to pull that information, and then all of a sudden we had a lot of documents and no idea what was in them. The next step was, of course, to get them in, get them analyzed, and make them searchable, make them machine readable, and start pulling information out, whether it's key obligations, whether it's important dates, or whether it's anything I need to know, even which VP signed this agreement, or how many agreements contain a limitation of liability in excess of $1 million. All of these are trackable. All of these are findable. All of these are stuff we can support and we can do to make your life easier. So with that, I'd like to move on to solution 2. Now, I think I can do this. There we go. So what I like to think of the second thing that we've solved and I've solved is automation. Now, everybody these days is talking about automation and AI as something that's scary, but it's not. The goal of all of this is to really decrease error and make lawyers and associated professionals work better. In 2019, if you're looking at the same slides I am, 2 years ago, 33% of the average legal department corporate transaction work was automated. And 55% of companies reported that the work they were doing was automatable. Over the next few years, Gartner's estimating that 50% of legal work related to major transactions will be automated. Now, what does that mean? Is that actually, a computer's going to come in and take your job? Of course not. That's not what it's about. What it's actually about is what I like to call our automated contracting desk and our really, really cool workflow tool. Now, I know that someone from our marketing team is also on this line. I know that they're not going to give me any awards for saying really, really cool workflow tool, but to me, it's really, really cool. So Tara, let's go and take a look at the authoring desk. I think you control this, Tara, so I don't know if I can do anything.
Yeah, but it's already saying I'm sharing.
Oh,
so I just want to check.
There we go. There we go. Now you're sharing again.
Are we good?
Yes,
Okay,
I think you're
good.
sharing now.
Okay.
So let's do this. I'm going to walk you through actually adding a contract, and then we're going to take a quick look at the authoring tool. Now, of course, the goal of any tool is to be simple. And one of the goals I've given to our team here at ContractPodAi is that people should be able to use it without needing extensive training. So before we release things now, we've taken the tack of having me as a tech-savvy attorney try to figure something out without any training, without any instructions, without really knowing what I'm doing. Now, sometimes I break things, and of course, I'm always happy to break things because I've got a great team here that will support me and really fix it for me. But if I can't do it myself without training, then I know it's really going to take a long time for anybody else to learn how to do that. Because I'm working with the tool day in and day out. I can go right to our product people and say, this doesn't make sense. But if it doesn't make sense to me and it doesn't make sense to the people who are using it, then we've got a bigger problem. So, the first item that we'll touch on for this portion is authoring first-party paper. So in this, we're going to go through adding a request. Now, as you can see, there's several ways to do it. Tara clicked the button. As Tara goes through this, I'm going to talk a little bit about what she's doing, which is these are programmed developed solutions we put in to the product. So if you like Tara are requesting an NDA, we have built out, in this case, a typical NDA workflow for a company that's just beginning their digital transformation. Now, if you were in Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics CRM, you might be able to do everything you're seeing Tara do might just be a button click. And that's actually how we've done it for our salespeople and for many of our customers' salespeople. They click a button, they generate an NDA, there's no questions because they don't need to really fill out any information. Information flows back and forth between Salesforce and ContractPodAi. We could do the same thing with Microsoft Dynamics CRM. We can do the same thing with Workday. But here's where we get to the really cool stuff. Tara's now going to select a template, and we're going to ask a few questions to the person who's drafting it. Now, again, like I mentioned, this is a more powerful version of what I might configure for my sales team, because maybe I don't want them to choose the confidentiality provision or the term of it. Maybe I want everything to go right to, Tara Bennett as a signatory. Maybe I don't want them transferring in rights title or interest. So you can again make this as complex or as simple as you want. And of course, we're here at ContractPodAi to help you. Now, of course, I believe in simplicity for some folks, but I want the power to do this. So what Tara's done is she's filled out the form, and now we're going to let the computer go ahead and try to generate the first version of our internal contract. So we've got this. The document's drafted. Oh, by the way, when we were creating this document, this took approximately 5 minutes or less to create. All of these questions we're asking are either text fields, data fields, or they're coming from that request form that she filled out just a few minutes ago. So when you're seeing this, and Tara, if you scroll down, you'll see that she's put the effective date is already in there. The party names are in there. The signature blocks are already in there. And we're well on our way to getting this document out the door. Now, from there, you do have a few options. And again, this is what I'm saying. We could be as simple or as complex as is needed. We can kick off a collaboration. Now, Tara laughs at me every time I say I use collaboration all by myself because I sound a little crazy. But actually, I find that on my iPad, using our internal collaboration tool is great. I send myself an invitation. I just start working in a Word interface in the web browser. I never have to leave the web browser. I never have to think about it. But if you want to invite someone outside the party, outside your company to work with you, or you want to work with someone else inside your company, we can do that. It's all tracked, traced, redlined, and saved. We can actually do quite a bit more. We can send for signature. We tie in, while we do include an e-signature solution in the platform, we can also tie in to whatever platform you may prefer for e-signature, whether that's DocuSign, Adobe Sign, eSign Live, whatever you want, we are able to tie into that. Now, we have a few options from what we could do here. And what really comes up is, what are we going to do? So let's say this had gone out, and Tara, I don't know if you have an edited version already on your computer, but if you can, what we could do is say, hey, this NDA went out to the other party and they cut out these clauses. But wait, they didn't redline. Now, of course, all of the other lawyers on this call, you're all sitting there going, uh-oh, they didn't redline. How could they? That's the number one offense you could do in a contract negotiation, is not tell someone you redlined and let them catch it themselves. Well, we've got a solution for that. We do have document comparison tools. You can accept or reject red lines and changes right in the system, and they're all stored in the system. So sorry, go ahead, Tara.
I was just going to say, Jerry, we can show that when we show the third-party review. When we reduce the risk, we'll be able to dive into that piece of functionality, so everyone will be able to see the end results of that comparison feature.
Great, that would be wonderful. So, by the way, so now Tara has shown us the creation of a document. And if we go to the snapshot page, let's take a look at something very quick. Remember how a moment ago we opened the document and you saw that it was that the important dates and the key data wasn't pulled out, was already pulled out. Now, this document is still in a workflow, so it doesn't know what's going on. It's basing it on the information that we put in. Remember, we put in there was a 3-year term. We put in all those, a number of other key points. If we were to actually finalize this, it went through the signature process, we would then begin extracting key data. It becomes reportable. Those important dates get calendared for you. So you're never missing a date. You're never being surprised, like many of us have been, by finding out that something is just not quite, oh, this automatically renewed, or, hey, we forgot to bill the client. I mean, this is a real problem. My prior company, we found several $100,000 worth of free services we were giving out because no one was actually terminating the agreements, yet we weren't billing for them. You'll notice that there's a neat little button right above in the upper right-hand corner right now called Translate. We support up to 70 languages through cognitive translation, and it's really, really good. I wouldn't, now I always caution there, I wouldn't submit a brief or a motion or a draft of something to a court using the translation function. But knowing what's in the document, reading it, and being pretty darn sure you're in the right place, it can do that. I've done it we've tried with books, and we've tried with documents, and you could take a look and say, hey, this did a really good job, and maybe if you're a little more of a risk taker than me, you would just mail that translation over. But at least while you're trying to decide what you're trying to do, you got a contract in Japanese or French, and you don't speak or read those, you don't want to engage French outside counsel or Japanese outside counsel, you can at least look at it and see where that contract stands and how it works. Now, Tara, if we can jump over to the vault real fast, let's take a look at the other two areas, which are just automating the document as well as our workflow. So Tara's going to take you into, we treat every type of contract, every type of document as a type of application. As each document type can have its own template or number of templates. So if you have 6 NDAs that you use in your organization, each one of them can be separately templatized. They can actually be workflow automated so that your procurement team doesn't use the one-way NDA when they're supposed to use a 2-way NDA, or your sales team doesn't send out the investment NDA when you're trying to sell a product. We can of course request a lot of data. So where you see these intake form fields, this is all trackable data. We're able to set up every request form into its own database about that specific contract. And Tara, can you scroll up for 1 second, because I've gotten this question a lot recently. What if you have more than one document associated with a contract? You'll see right there, primary documents can be single or multiple. So if you have been sent over a contract with 15 attachments, we can take that in and organize them for you. A lot of solutions right now can deal with one document, and everything has to be a separate file, separate document, associated document. We're not looking at that as that. And trust me, when you have a contract that has 35 attachments, it's a lot easier if you can upload everything at once than if you have to go one by one with 35 attachments. Tara is going to go down a little bit now, and we're just going to take a quick look at the ACD. So what we're going to do here is, if we open the mutual NDA, now each one of these are your templates, and if we launch our ACD, which right there, that beautiful button just turned purple. All of these here, what you're seeing here is our 3 types of fields. So at the top, you'll see intake form fields, custom fields, and spans, clause library, and functionality. Intake form fields are always there. They're whatever we've got in the intake form, and they can be, again, complex or as simple as you need to be. So, you know, I could create a document, and in fact, I have in just a couple minutes by using these intake form fields. Maybe I like to assign every document we produce its own ID number. I use the request ID. Your client name, your contracting party name, addresses, descriptions of the contract, the value. So you're a sales team, you want to generate an order form. What's the value? We can take that in. We can delve a little deeper. Custom fields. What is the date? What is the execution date of this agreement? How many years is confidentiality preserved? What's the person's name? And then once you're a little more into the tool and you've gotten much more excited about what you can do, I like using span functionality to create multiple documents in one document. So we have a form that I used to call change order or amendment, and tell people you delete these sections if it's a amendment, you delete these if it's a change order. This is now one template in my system, because the minute you say, when you get asked, is this a template, is this a change order, or is this an amendment, it picks the fields that you need to have. It builds the document for you. And of course, Tara's hovering over the clause library button, which is really important. Thank you, Tara. That's how we can bring individual clauses into your document. So for my NDA that we use here at ContractPodAi, we have several offices across the globe. So what do I want to do? Maybe our India office wants to be governed by the laws that govern contracts signed in Mumbai. Our London office wants to deal with contracts that are signed in the UK and under English and Welsh law. Our US office wants to have New York law. All of those can be made into clauses. All of those are automatically placed in the document via the clause library, and they're easy to take. They're easy to take in, and of course, if you don't need them, you can take them right out. You know, we can delve a little bit in conditional fields and functional fields. Conditional fields are your if-then statements. I think I'm getting a little too deep into it, but you know, if X, then Y, you can set that up. And functional fields are where I turn it over and say, I need my team to really help me build this, because that's where we're delving into actually building real additional programming logic that's not default in the system. So that's where Tara and her team can come in and say, we have a solution for what you want to do, what magic you want to make. Remember, I'm still just a lawyer. So when I need help with stuff like conditional fields or functional fields, I turn to my team here. And of course, our team here are experts in how to make this work. The other thing that I really want to show you is the really, what did I call it earlier? The really cool workflow creator. So when we go back to that original, the vault, and we delve into the workflow designer, this is something that I'm super excited about, because if you can draw a line, you can now make a workflow. So Tara, if you could jump in. Do you have an example
of one?
I was going to say, can we, any of them should be fine. Some of them are a little more complex because I've been playing around in the system, trying to learn how to build better workflows. But here you go. This is a very straight line workflow. This is drag and drop. These are boxes. You can actually set up your workflow now by just drawing lines. So if you're like me and you draw flows on a piece of paper with squiggly lines all over the place, once you have that idea, you can drag it, drop it, and set it up all by yourself. So, you know, let's say at the negotiation stage, this didn't just go to awaiting signatures, but really Tara says, hey, this has to go to Jerry for approval because it's in excess of $100,000. Tara can add a new choice box and have the arrows and drag the arrows around. We can make them change. Now, again, I'm saying boxes and arrows. Now, these are real steps if you want to think about it like this. This is a pretty simple one, but in a complex one, you might be going from request submitted to finance needs to sign off on one thing, the tax team needs to sign off on another, IT needs to sign off on the information security clauses. Once all of those are identified and set up, you can trigger this workflow and have it go to whoever needs to sign off and approve it. They'll be able to edit the document. They'll be able to edit their section, send it back in, and keep it going. And all of that can be, depending on how you like to do that, all this could go in serial or parallel. You could be doing one at a time, or everybody can work at the same time in that document. And you can, of course, do that with that collaboration module. So I think, I know I am racing through this. I will talk about this for hours if you gave me hours, and I know Colin doesn't want to waste the rest of everybody's afternoon by talking about that, or by hearing me talk. But again, if you are interested in hearing me talk, I am always happy to talk more. As I'm getting half-lidded looks from my family as they walk through the room. Of course you like to talk, Jerry. What else do you like to do? My wife actually just chimed in and said eat. My other activity is eating. So the third thing you have to solve for when you're building out your legal operations function and easing your life and the life of the rest of your team is managing your company's risk profile and making sure you know where documents are. So this is a really terrifying number, that the average cost of non-compliance to a company per compliance incident is $14.82 million. So what we started thinking about here at ContractPodAi is, how do we avoid that? Well, of course, we've already talked about reporting and about the analysis of the system in the tool, pulling out key obligations, finding out where documents are visible and making them visible to visitable to your organizational community. But what can you do to make that better? So of course, we have set up tasks. We talk about the repository. We have reporting that can go. But one thing that I'm really fascinated by is what we call contract risk and compliance. So Tara, if you can add a new request now, and now we're going to look at this with third-party paper. So if you're like me, sadly, you're not always on your paper. In fact, we have customers, and I've talked to other folks who have 100% of their contracts are third-party paper. Now, of course, many of us would love for everything we have to be first-party paper. It makes it much easier. We know that's not always the case. So we get into this question of, how do we get the document in? How do we find out what's in it? How do we make it easier to understand and to work through? So most of us have a playbook, or at least we've been able to write down some of our ideas. We comment on what we think is the right way to do things. We build out document. We have our own files. We take notes on everything we do. So Tara is uploading a license agreement that's new to the system. And, look, we want to get this right. So you are going to see this spin for a second. The AI is actually reading the contract. It's actually looking at the context of the terms in the document. What our system is doing is actually looking at what you've told us you like, what our research and hundreds of thousands of contracts being analyzed have gone through, what these terms are and where they are. What we get from there is we then get to what we call our risk scorecard as part of contract risk and compliance. So we can actually go through a document and tell you what is or is not meeting your internal rules. So you'll see here that this document right now has scored 7 out of 40. So let's take a look. And I know Tara mentioned this earlier. When we looked earlier, she said that there was a way to look at red lines and see some things we could change. So, but first I want to take a look at the key data. So the AI has gone and said already, there's non-compliant text in this document. These clauses seem to match your compliant text, but some of these clauses don't match your compliant text. So what can you do? That's where you kick off the review contract terms. This opens up the document in a new window where you can see what's going on. Clicking on those items shows you what your compliant text is, whether you want to remove text, red line right in the system, accept the risk. Now, again, we're giving you guidance. We're working with your guidance to pick that out. But we're able to replace that and replace a clause directly with what you've said is your compliant text, your fallback text, your other fallback text. We can give you explanations as to why you should do that. All of that can be built out so you know what you're doing, or in some cases, you can even let your salesperson accept certain things. You know, let's say one that I like to point out is payment terms. You know, if your standard payment terms are 30 days, but you're willing to accept net 45, maybe you can say document came back from the customer with net 60. Salesperson says, okay, that's the only thing that the contract review system scored as being a negative. I'm going to click net 45 and ask the customer if that's okay. Done. We could do that. Or we could go to where it says review and accept changes. And Tara, is that the right place for us to click right now? Review and accept changes or accept changes?
I think we should accept changes. And then if we want to go into, I'm just very conscious of time.
Yes.
So if we accept these, and then we can perhaps take a brief look at collaborate and then compare.
Absolutely. I think that's the best way to do it. Now, again, the system is working. It is going through reanalyzing the document now that you've made some changes. It's pulling out those terms again. So this is not immediate. We do have to wait a second while it does it. And you can see it doesn't take that long, but it is thinking through it. So you'll actually see when the screen reloads, some of these have changed from red flags to green flags. And if Tara clicks on Risk Scorecard, we'll actually see that we're getting better. We're no longer worried about the dispute resolution clause, which scored a 0 before. We're no longer worried about indemnification, and the assignment clause now matches what we're looking at. So Tara, let's take a quick look at, do you want to start with collaborate or compare first?
Let's start with collaborate. We
Okay.
won't save, but let's just start with collaborate and let's collaborate with ourselves.
Okay,
Jerry.
Let's go. Let's do it.
So at this point, you can add external users in, by the way, and to invite those third parties in to collaborate, they do not require a license within the tool. Over to you, Jerry. I'm in collaborate now.
Yes,
it's loading.
It is loading. So what we're looking at here is effectively a word system in your browser. You can pretty much in this do whatever it is, and it's saving and saving your changes, checking your spelling, checking your grammar, and all this as you're working. So if Tara goes and deletes an entire section of this document, it will show up in red line. Now, if she clicks save when this is done, and again, you can add comments. All of these are word accessible. All of these are doable, and there. Once she clicks save, there's a copy that's saved back in ContractPodAi. Ignore that error. It's because we're in a demo and it doesn't like me right now, but it is saved. So what we're going to do is when we go back to ContractPodAi main, if we lock the collaboration, so we finish that up, let's go take a look at a comparison. And you could see that even though it said that error, you don't see that in our live accounts. You see that in a demo because, of course, whatever can go wrong in a demo does go wrong. So if we take a look at V1 versus V2, which was the version we created for collaboration, we're actually going to see those red lines and be able to action them right away. So here we go. You can see we've made these changes. These are coming through. You're able to jump directly to the changes and accept them as you want through the document. So when you're doing this, you can see everything live and in front of you. And if Tara had deleted those sections without showing her changes, it would have found them anyway. So we've eliminated that step of opening Word, checking against things, or the worst, even worse, when someone sends you a PDF of a document, we can compare against that as well. If someone sends you photographed pictures of a document, yes, we could run OCR and create a PDF, but I really hope no one of these taking pictures of documents and sending them to any of us. So with that, I just want to touch on one or two more things, and then we've got a minute or two for questions. You know, we have quite a bit that we didn't touch on today in the system. We handle a full end-to-end contract lifecycle management platform. And, you know, I think Tara probably touched on it before I started, but we do support a variety of additional apps. Tara, could you just go back to the main screen of the product real fast? So all of these can be configured by you. Again, whether you're focused on core contract lifecycle management, or you have other things you want to manage, reviewing RFPs, like replacing Ariba, managing your IP, tracking your trademark and patent status. We've pre-built several applications, but the sky is really the limit in what you're doing. Whatever you need that we can work with you to build, or you want to build on yourself, theoretically, you can build any type of application you want, from tracking claims and tracking RFPs to corporate governance to even litigation management, can all be managed within ContractPodAi Cloud. So we're moving on, like I said at the beginning, from being just a CLM. We handle workflow. We handle the entire legal, and you know, let me pull that back. There are a few things we don't want to get involved in, e-discovery and maybe billing, but we do handle a significant portion of your legal day-to-day job, and even some things that you haven't thought of. We're starting to build out ways to make this better for you. So whoops, don't want to load the whiteboard. We look at this as 5 areas. You know, we're getting you around the entire contract lifecycle management, but we're also able at ContractPodAi to solve a lot of these other issues, knowing where things are, reducing risk through date tracking, abstracting and saving time that would normally be spent by having a lawyer or a paralegal abstract contracts, or a contract manager, saving time on translation. Colin, yes, I can absolutely go into some of the use cases of the workflows. So of course, you know, earlier we were talking about a use case in the contract management cycle. But Tara, if you can go back to the use case screen in the Vault, in the workflow screen in the Vault.
Oh, apologies. I unshared so that we could. It's fine. I'll do it. Hold on. Bear with me.
But you know, one of the basic use cases, of course, is flagging things within a contract lifecycle workflow. This document needs to go to Sally because Sally has approval authority on any deal worth more than $500,000. But all other things can come in. Do you need a new entity formed? You know, how are we creating corporate governance documents? In IP, you know, we've created for customers an IP request portal, not just an IP management portal, but a place where they can request, submit information to support their application for a trademark, and build out an entire workflow for processing a trademark or a patent. From beginning, we've got an idea, to prosecuting that patent or that trademark. And of course, it's not just in the US, it's not just in the UK. We're working on making these jurisdiction friendly. So if you have something before the USPTO, you can see the flow for the USPTO. If you've got something before the EPO or the EU IPO, you could see the flows for those agencies. Again, the workflow designer is practically limitless. Tara, if you could click in the workflow designer, I saw one yesterday that was, you know, let's look at that top one. I want to say, I'm sorry, go to the one that says employment agreement. It's the 4th line down. I don't know if this is the one. Nope, unfortunately it's not. But to that end, if you, let's say, need an employment agreement to flow through something, we could build that. You know, maybe it's hiring manager wants to submit a request for a new candidate. That workflow will kick off a request to HR. HR will submit the job rec and all that information. You know, it's really, really quite limitless. I wish I could show you a very complex one, but that is, any of these, anything you want to do, and I'm trying to imagine more.
If you bear with me, Jerry, keep talking. I'm going to unshare my screen because I might have something that might talk to that point quite well.
Excellent.
Keep going. I'll see if I can find it.
So thinking of that, Colin, you're right. So the use cases could be anything from let's get this document to the right person to we have 75 levels of approval. We need to make sure that every one of these is approved. Or, we need to make sure that folks get reminded that a document's been sent to them. All of that is possible. One of those areas that I think all legal departments have faced in the past has been those things where, oh, well, I sent it to legal 2 weeks ago and they haven't done anything. Of course, we have an audit trail, but one thing that I like is the ability to set reminders in that workflow. Oh, you know what? I'm in legal. I sent this back to you 2 weeks ago, and you didn't do anything. So now so why is this ultimately the legal department can show we're doing the work. We're showing that we can do what we want to do. Tara's actually brought up some examples of workflows we are building or have built for other clients, for other customers. And you could see, and unfortunately Tara, can you zoom in a little?
Yeah, it's a bit small. They're just screenshots. It was just to give an idea of the complexity in terms of they can be almost circular in terms of going up to a particular point and being able to route back down.
Tara, so Colin, I hope that answers your question. We can really get quite deep into what a workflow can do, how far it can go. And again, like I said, this could be, you saw some simple 1, 2, 3-step workflows. This one flies around between different people, trying to make sure everything is tracked. Everybody who has approval rights is given. And these can be made, you can make a simple workflow in less than a couple minutes. And of course, the simpler ones, of course, are request, approve, sign. Request, approve, sign is the simplest workflow you could probably have. Maybe request and sign. You do need to think about what you're trying to accomplish. So if you have 75 levels and first of all, that's a tremendous and unmanageable workflow. But if you have many steps and you're trying to explain how they work, you will be dragging and dropping your arrows, dragging and dropping your flows. It's almost, for those of you who ever programmed in BASIC, it's almost like 10 go, 20 go to 10 with some of these. So it really depends on how complex the workflow is. I would say that, as you add steps, as you add complexity, as you add options, as you add if-then statements, you begin to add time. But no matter what, it's still very simple and straightforward. I would say that this probably took someone maybe less than an hour to build out and test, because ultimately this is upload version, check it. Is it ready for signature? No. Does it need approvals? Yes or no. Is there a requirement for collaboration? Yes or no. And of course, you can always copy a workflow. So if you have a workflow that's working for sales over 100,000, you want to get to a workflow that's going for sales over 1 million, you could copy and duplicate your 100,000 workflow and simply substitute something, or you could build it into one workflow. Deals under 10,000, deals under 100,000, deals under 1 million. And each one of those can have separate people they go to, separate teams, separate lawyers, separate stakeholders, all of that can flow. I know we're running up on time, Colin, and I'm expecting you to jump in and cut me off any moment now.
No, keep going for now. I'm just getting a couple of text messages on the question, so you're good. One more question on the workflow. You said you can copy and paste them. If I'm someone doing a heavy lift, like building out a legal operations function, will I need a support from ContractPodAi to get the first 1 or 2 of these done, and then copy and paste them?
I mean, that's a core service offering for us. We actually include implementation in our pricing. We do not, I will tell you from personal experience that that's a lot better than the way I got quotes when I was at my prior company for a contract management solution. And the solution was one price. And then I found out that implementing it was going to be 4 times that price. So we don't try to play bait and switch on that. We try to tell you right away, this is what you're paying. This includes your implementation. That includes training. That includes, and obviously we do. The more advanced, when you get past a certain point, we do have to discuss how we're going to make that work. But ultimately, your standard implementation, creating these workflows, making templates, even importing and migrating documents is all part of our standard fee structure. And yes, we will partner with you. Our team goes and looks at what you're doing. We will try to tell you whether something is a sensible way of managing a workflow or not. But of course, each client, each customer is different. So you do get times where something takes more time, but we're here to hold your hand and help you out throughout the entire process. We want you to be happy. We want the system to work for you, because if the system's working for you, then the system's working for us as well. So, are you going to be thrown to the wolves? Absolutely not. We are going to make sure that this works for you and that everything we do is designed for your success.
Yeah, this is fantastic, Jerry and Tara. Just if there's any other questions, please put them in. It looks like Karen from State Farm put in a question.
Sure. So Karen just asked a question, and for those of you who can't see the chat, it goes: are the suggestions built? The core of the question is: do you define your parameters, or are the suggestions built in as common wording? Everything is defined by you, Karen. So we will work with you. We do help customers create playbooks, or we've taken in playbooks from outside counsel. We will analyze documents for you as part of our migration and try to tell you what you accept, what you normally don't accept. We don't look at this as common wording. We are not just taking random phrases that you don't care about or you don't use and building them in. This is all based on what you're willing to accept, what are your company, your organization's fallbacks. So what may work for me, it may not work for you, Karen. But what I say I will accept is not going to be the same thing you will say you will accept. So we don't expect any of that to be. We don't expect this to be we do expect this to be bespoke. So all of that is done in a bespoke manner. I forgot that Tara and Colin are from a country that uses bespoke a lot more than we do here in the US. But we do this as a bespoke implementation. So those suggestions are from you. They are not something that we have told you have to use and that's it. So I hope that answers your question, Karen.
Yeah, that was a fantastic. This is one of the most useful tools that I've used in legal operations across the board. I remember running up with this. I think there was 92 use cases we had with workflows, and I'd love to talk to you more about that later on. But the fact that you've put this in with a high-powered contracts machine, CLM lifecycle, is just the next level. Nobody's did that yet, and I think that's where you guys are ahead of the game. Great to be here today with you guys. This has been awesome.
It's a pleasure, Colin. And
any more questions?
Anyone, if you do have questions, I actually love talking about legal technology, not just ours. I am really happy to talk, and I was a consumer, so I have a lot of friends, Colin, at the other companies, and we all do try to be cooperative, and we recognize that we're all in the same industry. So if you have general questions about something you're thinking about, something that you'd like to do, or of course I want you to choose ContractPodAi. But if you want to say, look, I just want to know, who do you think is good for e-discovery? Who do you think is good for something else? I'm happy to answer those questions. you could email me, jerry.levine@ContractPodAi.com. I'm on Twitter as @Jerry_Levine. On LinkedIn, I'm Jerry Levine. You might be seeing a pattern going on there. I try to capture my name wherever I am.
Brilliant. And now I know how to pronounce it correctly. Jerry Levine. Perfect. Guys, Tara, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jerry. Attendees, I really appreciate it today. And look forward to sharing. I'll share the recording with you this evening and follow up. If there's any questions, Jerry's left his information there and ContractPodAi's information. We'll be in touch. Thanks again, everybody.
Thank you, Colin. Thank you, Tara.
Thanks.
No problem. Thanks.